Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here, again. Yes, you might be wondering what's this Muppet doing back again so soon? The reason is twofold. First off, I know some people are having some issues with yesterday's video, which is not quite entirely sure what YouTube was doing in its processing of the video, but it all went a bit wrong. I should stress straight away, for anyone that did see yesterday's video, this is a new video. This is new stuff because I thought I'd do a part 2 to the Spurs Q&A. And like I say, there's two reasons for that. First off is for anyone that maybe wasn't able to see the first video. Maybe, hopefully, this one will work. So at least you'll get me answering a variety of Spurs questions. And if you did see it, then you're getting a part 2. And that kind of leads me on to the other part of it. There's lots of parts. That I had so many good questions. I mean, hundreds. That I kind of felt that even it was an hour and 12, 13 minutes yesterday, I didn't really feel that I even covered that many questions, even though I think I did. But I was just kind of looking through and I was like, there's so many other great questions that I could probably go through. So I'm going to try and go through as many more as I can. What I would say, if you're one of the ones who is able to see this, yet was having problems watching part 1, as we'll now call it. I'm going to go back and rename it part 1. It's a bit like the Star Wars movie becoming episode 4, A New Hope. But yeah, if you weren't able to watch it, a couple of fixes that people seem to be able to find is, one, either change the resolution from, I think it's 720p to 360. That appears, apparently, to make it work. Or the other flip side is, I think it was mainly an app issue. So if you were to just go into my YouTube channel on Safari on your phone, let's say, or another web browser on your phone, you should be able to watch it. It's one of those really frustrating things where I was able to see it absolutely fine. Even like members, friends and family, I was asking them, can you check this, see it's working? It was absolutely fine. But I know that some people were having issues looking at it through the app. And I think a fair bit of it comes from coming through notifications. I've told YouTube about it, but who knows? I think it was some kind of resolution issue that I think led to some problems in the back end, as it were. Because I know the first time it went up, it ended up with no audio, although it had audio to begin with, then it lost the audio, and then the second time, it was all a bit of a mess. Hopefully, this one will work fine. Maybe it's something having Spurs connected to what you do. Maybe things just unfortunately seem to go wrong eventually. But yeah, so very quick bit of housekeeping. In two fronts, Tottenham front and Indy front. If anyone did manage to watch yesterday's, they will know that I do have a dog called Indiana, in full. And once again, like with yesterday's video, I was out in the morning, as I was again this morning, and I felt guilty, so he's sitting right beside me on the sofa. Crashed out at the moment, but it's just to give you the warning, a bit of, as I call it, Indy roulette, that at any point he may either suddenly decide he's going to jump up and be a part of the video, or flip side could be someone may ring the doorbell or walk by that he does not agree with, and we'll suddenly hear him being very loud. If it's not too bad, I will try and continue. If it's really awful, obviously I will have to stop the video. But yeah, that's Indy. And yes, we did name the dog Indiana. That was a really bad Sean Connery impression, but yes, I named the dog Indiana. So let's crack on with some Spurs bits and pieces very quickly. Last night, 20 international Spurs had playing last night, which is pretty cool when you think about it. Good things. Dane Scarlett scored a couple of goals for England under 19s. I think they were playing against Portugal. That was quite an important qualifying match. Troy Parrott scored an absolute screamer to win their friendly match. The opponents has completely gone out of my head, but it's a lovely goal. Watch it on. It's all over Twitter. I think Sky put it out on Twitter. What else we have? Bentancur played, no issues there, which is a good thing. They won their game. Davinson Sanchez won for Colombia as well. Don't believe there are any issues there. Dejan Kulusevski, unfortunately for Sweden, didn't win. I think it was Poland. They were knocked out, so they're not going to the World Cup. And yeah, various players. Matt Doherty, I think, played the full 90 for Ireland as well. Troy Parrott, he came off the bench for about the last half hour or so. I'm sure there were lots of others that have gone out of my head, but yeah, big night for Spurs. Lots and lots of players, and now they'll all return to Spurs probably today. Pretty much most of them. Bentancur and Sanchez, you'd imagine they'll fly back today. Whether they're not able to be involved until tomorrow is another thing. But fingers crossed, all about keeping them all, hopefully they're all fresh and ready for Sunday's game against Newcastle. So yes. So that's a little bit of housekeeping done. Now to launch back into the Q&A. Last time I did it from the first come first served way with the oldest comments. Now I'm going to go the other way, so the newest comments, and these were comments left under not yesterday's video but the previous one with questions. So straight off the bat, first one, Kunal Deoskar asks, what do you think of Eric Dyer's prospects for next year? Do you think we'll target any defenders in his position during the summer to offer competition? First off, I think his prospects are probably pretty good. Conte is a big fan. I can't imagine Eric Dyer is going anywhere. I do wonder whether there might even be a new deal involved at some point as well, because, he has a big fan in Conte. Obviously, we'll have to see what happens with Conte in the summer, and that could change whatever comes next. But at this moment in time, Eric Dyer is a big part of his plans. And in terms of bringing in another defender, Spurs will look to bring in a left-sided defender to kind of be a competition, rotation, whatever you want to call it, with Ben Davies. Maybe that the person that comes in becomes the first choice left side defender, and Ben Davies has to fight for the spot again. People don't like it when I say for competition because they think it has to be someone better. That's what all roles are. Whoever you're bringing in should be competition. That's kind of the first basic element of it. And if they are better, they will quickly prove that. But in terms of a direct competitor for Eric Dyer, I suppose it depends on Joe Rodon. Joe Rodon appears, or we are told, is the competitor to Eric Dyer in that role. Although obviously Conte hasn't really shown that thus far. Joe Rodon probably likely to move on, I'd imagine. Hopefully, in my eyes, on loan, so that Spurs don't end up kind of regretting letting him go. And if he does go, then yes, you are probably going to need another central centre-back, if you know what I mean, in the back three. The one that can play in the middle and be a little bit of a playmaker as well. I think you would. So, potentially, in that scenario, maybe you're getting two in. Obviously, a lot will also depend on Japhet Tanganga and how he comes back as well. Because it's a funny one. And Spurs do have a fair few centre-backs, but it's playing those very specific roles that Conte asks of them, which is the key to kind of the setup. Right. Joe Blogs asks, Abramovich is writing off 1.5 billion of loans at Chelsea. Does this contravene financial fair play? In your opinion, what would Spurs have achieved with this level of additional cash? It's difficult. If someone's writing off loans, there are ways to look at it where it kind of feels like it's not fair, but I don't know legally whether it probably is fine. And in terms of what Spurs would have done, well, of course, you pumping £1.5 billion into a football club, they're going to do rather well. As we've seen at pretty much all the clubs that have had a major cash injection of huge amounts. So, yeah, of course. It kind of goes without saying. I think they do very well. Mark Bentham asks, you often mention the NFL. What is your favourite team? It is the Giants. It is the Giants. I clearly, especially now, the current version of Giants, I clearly am a guy who likes pain when it comes to their sports teams because the Giants are not too great at the moment. Although, new coach on board, new man at the very top as well, and a bit of a rebuild for them as well. So, I seem to like teams that do rebuilds. But yeah, I do like NFL. I used to really like it as a kid. Then I became so obsessed with football that I kind of stepped away from it for a fair while. Then about 5-6 years ago, maybe a little bit more, I started to get back into it. And then, last couple of years, really kind of got myself back into it. My neighbour Dave, who's a very nice man, and he'll be very excited that I mentioned him in a video. He's always wanted to be mentioned in a video. I don't know why. He's a West Ham fan as well. But he is very nice. He's huge into his NFL. And I think since I've moved to this new house, especially in the last year or so, he's really, really upped my kind of knowledge of it as well, which is cool. Yeah, I like it. I do like NFL. It's nice to... Whereas when I was younger, like I say, I was football obsessed. now, when your job is non-stop football, it's quite nice to have a release of another sport. And NFL provides that, obviously. Not at the moment, although there's lots of trade stuff happening as well. Next one. Ephraim Emilimore asks, here's a Q&A question. Would you consider doing vlogs on match days? I think many of us would enjoy seeing and experience match days from your perspective, and also seeing you not in front of a wall. Yeah, that wall. It's almost like this guy. Probably not in the immediate future is probably the way I'd put it. I'd like to keep what I do for work and what I do. My YouTube is kind of just my personal thing. It's just me. I always do them on days off. I've got a couple of days off this week, so yesterday and today, which has kind of worked out quite nicely, especially with what happened with the first video. So I do these on my days off. So yeah, at the moment, there are two things that are quite separate. Do my work, do my writing. That's obviously what I do for matches. Whereas my YouTube stuff it's kind of a separate thing at the moment. We'll see what the future brings. But right now, no, probably not going to be part of a match day experience. But and also, how do I put this in a sensitive way? I want to concentrate on the football match. I'd hope that the reason that I'm able to, I don't know, maybe analyse games, whatever, hopefully provide some insight into things, is because as a journalist, you kind of want to be quite observant. You want to notice little things. You want to notice little things that are going on the touchline and stuff like that. Whereas I think maybe if I was at a game and I'm doing that and I'm holding a camera constantly talking into it while the game's going on or during points of it, I'm probably going to miss a fair few of those things that I like to notice. So it doesn't really work. I mean, it's difficult enough with the many things I have to write during a match. So no, I don't probably think having a video up in front of me, video, sound like VHS, having my phone up in front of me like on a big selfie stick or something is probably not going to do me any favours in kind of what I want to do with it. Hopefully that makes sense, if you know what I mean. What else we got? CCV asks, is there any truth in Joe Lewis being at the Everton game? Do you know why he might have come? I don't know, to be honest. I must admit I didn't even see any stuff about that. That one's completely passed me by, that. I mean, I have to look back and see. Often we can kind of pour through, there's a lot of Getty images and things like that, but certainly I didn't see or hear that. That's not to say it's not true. It was one of those games that was such a good game for Spurs that we kind of focused, I guess, what was happening on the pitch for a change with Tottenham, which is quite unusual. But I'll look into that and I will get back to you on that one. Rosquito, I don't know why I went all Spanish for that. Rosquito asks, if eventually we got a UK-based NFL team that played its games at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, would you change your support from the team you follow now? I'm a Steelers fan myself and would have to stay loyal to the black and gold. Yeah, I wouldn't change my team. No, I wouldn't shift from the Giants. You wouldn't do that in football, soccer, so you wouldn't do that in NFL either. You'd obviously have one eye on it, the Tottenham Hotspurs or whatever they would be called. Probably London, wouldn't it? The London Hotspurs or something like that. Definitely would have one eye on it, and I would certainly, I don't know, I'd probably try to see if I could cover them as well, as long as it didn't clash. That would be quite cool. But no, I wouldn't switch my allegiance. Probably be a bit like Guesty. Guesty, obviously, as you know, Rob Guest, who does the podcast with me and works with me as well, Golden Guest Talk Tottenham, he is an Everton fan, and he doesn't make any attempt to hide that. Why should he? But I tease him a lot for it. I think he's got a soft spot for Tottenham because he covers them on a daily basis as well. So that would probably be the same, I'd imagine. Tim Betchervase. So like I was going to do open all hours there, not Granville. Granville. What was his name? Oh no, it's gone out of my head. That's really annoying. And now, whenever I say that, I'll then get a million people underneath saying the name Granville. Arkwright. So you go. You don't have to say it. Arkwright. That sounds like Arkwright. God, there's one for the kids. how to age yourself by referencing old TV shows. Although they did do Still Open All Hours, and they did a little revival recently. Tim Birchevase asks, without divulging any state secrets, I'd be fascinated to know how you go about establishing and building relationships with sources. It's time. It's getting to know people. It's trust, I suppose, building up stuff like that. Yeah, I think, sometimes, often you'll try to get numbers, you'll try to just contact people out of the blue, and then sometimes it's about maintaining a relationship. It depends who it is, whether it's someone within a club, within Spurs, someone around a player, maybe an agent, maybe a manager, maybe someone in their marketing side of things. It's about, I suppose, cultivating relationships, not doing it in a way that, you're using them, trying to, just trying to be a journalist, I guess, a journalist and hopefully a reasonable human being as well. So not burning bridges, not, upsetting people to a degree, kind of being fair. And I think if you're fair, then hopefully, people don't get too annoyed with you in terms of, like I say, burning those bridges. And I've been doing it, been a journalist for almost 20 years now. It's 19 years, which is, again, aging me badly. But covering Spurs for summer of 2016, I started officially with Football London in January 2017. So, we've been doing it for more than half a decade now. And I think you just kind of maybe at that level now, hopefully, in terms of people. It sounds like I'm trying to be big-headed. I don't mean to be, but I think people know I cover Tottenham. I think that's probably the best way to say it. So people will come to me with stuff. Whereas in my early days, it was more scrabbling about and, like I say, trying to start those relationships. Whereas now, perhaps more people will come to me, whether it's someone involved with a player or someone involved in whatever to do with a deal or a PR company that want, something that, there's loads of little things. So they'll come to you, and that kind of opens more doors. Not Mordor from Lord of the Rings, but more doors. So yeah, it's kind of the way it works. Sorry, it's kind of a long-winded answer, but it's kind of a range of different things, I think. Right. Alex Stoliano says, there's a real good feel-good factor about us at the minute with the players and the fan base fully behind Conte. It would be insane if the club don't bend over backwards to keep him happy and continue this momentum, regardless if we get top four or not. How do you see it playing out? It's Tottenham. It's the unknown. I don't want to repeat myself too much because I do keep saying this, but I think it's in Tottenham's best interest to do everything they can to make Antonio Conte happy this summer. I do. You can feel the way the club's going. You can feel the changes behind the scenes now. You can feel you can hear what the players are saying. Players will always be good to their manager, but the way they talk about Conte is a real, this guy is going to take us places. And I think if Tottenham chuck that away because they're just trying to try and squeeze by this summer, I think they'll only have themselves to blame, and I think they'll have an utter mess on their hands, I'll be honest with you. Mark MC1890 asks, just with Gio and Tongi being on loan, where are we regarding the homegrown issues, and will we be able to do much because of it, or will it be a classic sell before we buy a window again? I don't think Spurs can afford to do the whole sell before they buy a window. I think they've got to crack on straight away this summer. In terms of homegrown, they were in a reasonable position before those guys went away. Right now, they'll be in a great position in terms of homegrown, foreign player limits and all of that. I think they'll be fine. Because I do think you'll see, I'd be surprised if Gio or Tongi are around at Spurs next season, whether it's another loan or whether it's permanent. I don't think they're going to probably play too big a part. Kutloano Pena asks, just a short question from me. Since Conte wants experienced players, do you think the club can offer him that? I think they need to do. I think I said this in part 1, which hopefully people have seen. judging by the views on it, I'm guessing that a fair few people haven't been able to see it. So I will slightly repeat myself on a couple of questions. In terms of experienced players, I think I think they have to. I think it's in short. I think they do. I think you need one or two just experienced players sprinkled in there. You know, I see like De Vrij at Inter, and I think that's the kind of player. I think they're going to have to look at those kind of players as well. Just someone, just who brings in that. I hate to use the cliche, the winning mentality, but you know, that has to come in with that little bit of knowledge and know-how and how to see out big moments. And like I've said a couple of times now, I've been watching the All or Nothing Juventus Amazon show, and I'm a fair way into it now, and you can really tell Indy's sighing. I think sighing in his sleep. I think it's just like, oh, not that bloody show again. You can just tell the people like Chiellini, Bonucci, and of course, you know, just experience they have there as well. It's Buffon, of course, that was the name I was searching for and unable to get. They're players that have just been there and done it and know what they're doing. And I think that's something Tottenham probably have struggled for. And so if you could bring in a couple of those characters, I do think that could be the difference. You know, we know Spurs will also buy young players. We know they will. And that's why the likes of Kulusevski and Bentancur have ticked both boxes, because they've got the experience despite being young. But if they could bring in a couple more players like that, I do think you'll see a transformation in the stability, as Conte likes to call it, in the team. So yes, is the answer to that. Chinmay Perry, who, if I'm right, is always going on at me on Twitter about having another video out. I do notice it. I don't always notice what everyone says on Twitter because my notifications are an utter mess most days. But I do notice you, Chinmay, often asking for a video. So here you are. Here's a video. And he asks... It says question 5, so I presume there's other 4 questions somewhere. I might not be able to answer more than one because I'm going to try and be fair. So the question I'm going to answer is, do you think there's more doors or wheels in the world? Yes, I know that swept the country and the world, I think, at one point on social media a couple of weeks back. Doors is my answer. It is my answer. I've seen a couple of videos where people properly went into the information on it, and when you properly analyse it, there are more doors. That's my theory. And I'll get loads of comments now. People going, you moron, it's wheels. But even like on a car, you know, people say, oh, every car's got 4 wheels. But yeah, every car's got a load of doors as well. And even compartment doors. Oh my God, I'm really getting into it, which I really didn't want to. But yeah, doors is my answer. And I won't have it any other way. Joey Kando, which sounds like a proper Sopranos name. I love that. There seems to be competition for left wing back all of a sudden. Now the reports of interest in Reguilon are circulating all around. Can we expect to see him competing for that left wing back spot come next season? I think it depends on Real Madrid and what they do. This is their last summer to kind of take up their option if he wants to go back. He seems quite settled, but I do agree. I think Sessegnon is pushing him, and I think Conte really likes Sessegnon. And I guess Reguilon is one of those players that, you know, you can get a bit of money for if you want to put that elsewhere, but then you'd only have to go and get another left wing back in. I like Reguilon, and I think he's got a lot of, Conte likes the expression, he can improve a lot. And that's not a derogatory thing. It's kind of saying he's got a high ceiling, his potential. And I think Reguilon has. He's just got to focus on the final third, really, because he could be very, very good as a wing back. I hope he stays. But I think the decision really will lie out of Tottenham's hands, really. It will lie with Real Madrid. And then if they do want him, then the player himself. Robert Cameron asks, have you heard anything about the club being up for sale and that Daniel Levy is worried about the Chelsea sale? I can imagine they'd be a little bit concerned about the price, because the price will set a certain level, which maybe will then have influence what Tottenham could be sold for if they wanted to. However, I would say, I guess with Tottenham, you are also including one of the best stadiums in the world, which is also, as I said before, only purpose-built NFL stadium outside America. You're also throwing in an incredible training ground as well, although Chelsea obviously have an incredible training ground. But obviously, if you buy Chelsea, you know the stadium's something you're going to have to work on. I mean, it's a funny one with the whole Levy selling the club thing. I know there's obviously is people that would really like ENIC to sell up. It's one of those where anyone you ask, there's kind of a flat no, they're not looking to sell. And Levy, whenever he does a supporters trust meeting with the Tottenham Hotspur supporters trust, he always pretty much is asked that question. He always says no, it was no intention to sell. However, as in most things in football, I don't think if someone came in with the right offer, I don't think anyone would turn it down. But it's what that offer is, and we're seeing how fussy or particular they're being about the naming rights. So can you imagine that with the price of the club? Yeah, it's something that I think there would have to be. Maybe they look at the Chelsea situation, and maybe there will be people that don't successfully buy Chelsea that then turn their attentions to Tottenham. You never know. That could actually work in Tottenham's favour. We'll see what happens. Football. There's a lot of change going on in there, isn't there? Some good, some bad. And he's having a dream in his sleep, which is making him make all funny noises, which I don't know whether you're going to be able to hear or not. And he's also slightly snoring. Thank you for that, Andy. Thank you. This would be really weird if there was no dog there whatsoever, and this was just me pretending I had an imaginary dog there. There is. I can't turn the camera around, otherwise I'd let you see him. As I said before, in the last video that not everyone saw, his little sand-coloured cockapoo. Although he's not too little nowadays. A bit like myself. What else got? Lewis Jones. Just a quick one, Ali. What is the perfect film and why is it Goodfellas? I love Goodfellas. I do love Goodfellas. But as I've stated many times, Raiders of the Lost Ark is my favourite film. And I would see that as the perfect film because there's a bit of sad movie trivia perhaps here. Steven Spielberg came into that film with the kind of I suppose turkey on his back. You just have a turkey on your back, you have a monkey on your back. But you know what I mean. The turkey of 1941 that he'd filmed before, which was a massively bloated, over-budget film that took too long, didn't do well. And he kind of came into Raiders of the Lost Ark off the back of that with a bit of a reputation suddenly of, he's a bit of a diva and all of this, and which obviously in his previous films you could tell he wasn't. So he very much went into Raiders of the Lost Ark with the idea of we're going to shoot this quick, we're going to shoot it efficiently, bang, 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 we're going to knock it out. And I think he actually brought it in ahead of schedule and below budget and brought it in. And so for me, that's why it's the perfect film, because there's no waste. If you look at Raiders of the Lost Ark, there's no point of that movie where you think, you didn't really need that bit, did you? You could have probably just skipped through that. That's how it's like. And I think that also adds to the element of the excitement, the adventure, the quick pace, the moving, the constantly, trying to get to the destination, the adventure, as it were. And there you go. That's my little movie thoughts there. Joel H asks, do you see younger players like Harvey White, Dane Scarlett, Alfie Devine and Alfie Whiteman getting any minutes next season, or do you think most of them will head out on loan? I'd expect Harvey White probably will. I think he probably should have this year. I know they had to keep him because of the midfield numbers, but he had a good time at Portsmouth and he probably could have benefited from another one. Dane Scarlett, I think I said this before, I think first half of the season I'd want to see him getting minutes in Europe with Kane rested, and obviously I think they will sign another striker in the summer, so kind of giving them minutes in the cup competitions and then maybe in January heading out. Alfie Devine, still very young, 17. I'd imagine you'd probably see him getting more time with the first team rather than... I don't like the idea of loaning out players. I've seen a lot of that, like, let's loan Scarlett out, loan Devine out. They're 17 years old they've been. I know Scarlett's just turned 18. But pretty much at that age, I feel you need to be developing and learning kind of within your environment and then go out. Maybe when you're 18, 19, it's a little bit different. Alfie Whiteman, well, he's at Degerfors right now in Sweden. The second loan spell there. Brandon Austin obviously has just got his new deal. I'd imagine Brandon Austin... It's one of those where I think they probably look at both keepers and see which one are we going to get a loan bid for, because it's quite difficult to loan out keepers. I think I've said this before, but if you weren't aware, that's one of the hardest players to loan out because you need a club that will guarantee them game time and they'll play minutes. Whereas it's not often a club when they're looking for someone who's going to be their first team regular, will want a loan player in that role. They'll often try to sign someone permanently. So perhaps they'll look at it and see which one of Whiteman and Austin gets a loan. But I think probably at this point will be Austin being third choice again next season. Just be interesting to see who's second choice. Kian Lemotte says, or Motti, does Levy have some sort of clause giving Tottenham a fee if Dele was to leave Everton this summer? Do you know what? That's something that I'm back at work tomorrow, and that is something I'm going to be chasing up because it's not gone too well for Dele at Everton. It's I don't know how. I mean, it depends obviously whether they stay up or go down or not, and obviously what impact he has for the rest of the season. But there's got to be a little fear there on Tottenham's part if there isn't some kind of clause that he ends up it just not working. It does end up becoming a free transfer because ultimately the deal itself, I think it's about 35 million or so. Spurs could get an add-ons if he achieves certain things. And the way it's going, it doesn't look great. But yeah, I'll dig around. I'd be surprised if it would be a deal without something that gives Spurs some kind of financial benefit. That's not a question. That's not a question either. I don't know. No, there you go. I knew Indy would bark at some point. There you go. At least proof that he exists. It's because someone has stopped outside, so he's thankfully just a quiet one. Labone Monakisi. Sorry if I've killed the pronunciation there. Do you play fantasy football? If so, what's your team ranking? If not, well, I'm so sorry about your condition. I hope you get better soon. It's a strange end to the question, but and this is where I'm going to bring NFL back into it again. With the Premier League, I do it at the start of every season. I do a fantasy football with our work lot. Then I pretty much forget about it for the entire season. And we'll have injured players sitting in there for far too long. So I do completely forget about it. Whereas on the other side, NFL, that's all right, mate. You just adjust yourself, Indy. Don't worry about knocking into me. With NFL, because of my mate Dave, who lives a couple of doors down, I have properly got into NFL fantasy football, which certainly last season, yes, I was very much keeping an eye on Red Zone while also looking at my fantasy football. It adds an extra element to it. So, no, in terms of soccer, football, fantasy football, I do it, but I don't really pay too much attention. NFL, yes, I do, and I really, really enjoyed it last season as well. So I'll be doing that as well. Who else we got? Jordan Soloff asked, does Harry Kane signing a new contract at Tottenham depend on whether the club finish in the top four and Conte staying? I wouldn't say 100%, but I think it'll have a major bearing. I'd probably go as far as to say that. He needs to be convinced that there's a point to signing a new contract, to put it bluntly, really. He needs to know that the club are, and the age-old cliche, unfortunately, when it comes to Harry Kane, is matching his ambition. Conte does. Signing Conte does, but then you've got to do everything else that comes with appointing Antonio Conte. You can't just appoint Antonio Conte and hope he performs magic. He's got to have everything at his disposal that he needs. Elliot Carmel asks, since we've signed Bentancur, do you think the Spurs would be unlikely to look at another defensive midfielder? Who do you see as signing next season as a creative midfielder? Eriksson and Lingard have their contracts coming up, so those two are the most realistic names at the moment. Lingard, Spurs, I know, certainly inquired about back in January as a potential summer move, but there's some kind of feeling that Lingard is likely to want to go abroad. Eriksson, I think Spurs will be looking at how he plays, certainly. It depends whether you're one of these people that thinks that, never go back type. Should you go back to what was it? Can it ever be as good the second time kind of thing? We'll see with Eriksson. We'll see where it goes. It would be a different Eriksson, I think, to the one that left Tottenham. It would be someone that obviously far more experienced and has gone away and won more stuff. Obviously, he won at Ajax, but he'd won with Inter Milan as well. Conte knows him well. I think it would be a play they look at. I know, they like. There's a little bit of interest in Damsgaard as well, Mikael Damsgaard, but I think there will be a lot of interest in him as well. It depends. The problem with some of these is that certainly was the player they were interested in pre-Conte, and Conte, very clearly pointed to that recruitment and said, "You're recruiting players that are either great bargains." This is paraphrasing hugely and infusing my opinion in it. That are great bargains or players that you really should get back, like Gareth Bale, for example. Whereas actually, you need to recruit the right players for the team and the players that will adapt very quickly to the Premier League. I think you have to look at that when they're signing. They've made some big signings and creative midfielders as well in recent years that haven't worked out. So they've got to get those exactly right. JJ Hutton asks, do you think it would be better for Sarr to go out on loan all season or spend the first half of the season at Spurs to train at a top team and then go out on loan for the second half? Again, look at him in pre-season. See how he does. A bit like Dane Scarlett. I personally like that idea of that way of doing it, having the first half of the season to let them adjust and then going off. It could work really well for Brian Hill. He could come back next summer absolutely kind of ready to go. So with Sarr, it's going to be such a different scenario. He's going from Metz, where they've had a really tough, struggling season. They've been in and around like the bottom 3-4 most of the season. Tough one for a 19-year-old kid to kind of develop and grow in, because you're a team that is all about a result. You're having to fight for it. And I suppose if you're coming to Spurs, it'll be all about the results as well, but in such a different way. I think they'll have a proper look at him first before they make a decision on that. Donny Jones asks, or Donny Jones, Doni, will you do a fun forfeit if Spurs win the league next season, e.g. fancy dress for a video? Do I have to? I don't really want to. I'd rather just enjoy them winning the league. Probably not, I'd say. I just would be an incredibly enthusiastic hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. Probably it would have to be the most overjoyed I'd be. Someone else also asking about Alan Dixon on the sideline. Who's the man on the sideline who does the stuff? That is Alan Dixon. We answered that one before. David Gowing asks, what are your thoughts on the strength of the current Tottenham squad in terms of the spine and depth? It's getting there. I don't think there's as many pieces to the puzzle as there were before. The problem will come in the summer is when I think certain players will have to leave. And then, like I say, the likes of Joe Rodon, I think Harry Winks will probably want first team football. And maybe one of the likes of Lucas or Bergwijn, maybe one of those will want to move for more attacking football, regular football. And then when that happens, you've got to replace them as well as looking at players in certain positions you need. So, I think they need another left-sided centre-back. I think they probably will need another right wing-back, depending on what happens with Emerson and Doherty. I think they will probably need... they definitely will need a striker. Please sign a striker, Tottenham. Unless Dane Scarlett has the most incredible pre-season where you just think you do not want to block his path in any way. I think they just need another experience. I'd say just a Llorente type would be great. Another kind of experienced one to help bring, a foil for Kane, but also to help bring Scarlett on for those first 6 months or so. At the moment, I think the strength isn't bad, but I do think that will change in the summer because of people that I think will leave, which means a bit of a rebuild. I know a lot of people hate that word, but it's the word that Paratici keeps using as well whenever he does interviews. David Gowling also chucked in there, what are your thoughts on the latest Batman film? Are you looking to see the new Top Gun film? Batman film, yes, I saw it. I think I said this in part 1. It's good. It's not up there with the best for me of Batman, but it was good. I liked the tone. At times it did feel a little bit like a perfume ad, with those glossy orange looks that you see. But it was good. I liked Robert Pattinson as Batman. It was good. I liked the the young angst version of Batman. It worked quite well, and I'm intrigued to see what they do. I thought Riddler, Paul Dano, was very good. Funny enough, just rewatched Little Miss Sunshine with him, and he was very good in that. I forgot how good he was in that as well. And I think, is it Barry Keoghan who's going to play in the Joker? I'm intrigued to see where they go with that. New Top Gun, I will watch Top Gun Maverick, yes, when it comes out. I did used to like the original. Intrigued to see. I think I got Miles Teller, who's a very good actor in that as well, who I presume is playing Goose's son, but I don't know. So I haven't spoiled anything because I don't really know whether he is or not. I don't know whether that's been revealed or admitted or whatever. Josh Morse asks, Alistair, if you had to pick one moment as a Spurs fan to relive if the result was to be changed, what would it be and why? There's so many finals. I mean, two moments, one personal, one major. Obviously, Champions League final. It was just an absolute privilege to cover that as a journalist, but obviously the match itself and the result was just such a damp squib. Reminds me of the IT crowd. Sorry, a damp squid. Excuse me. Damp squib. Yeah, I definitely would change that because I'd be very intrigued to see what the trajectory of Tottenham would have been had they won that, how much would have changed. On a personal level, when I was young, I went with my brother, took me to see Spurs play in the FA Cup semi-final against Everton at Elland Road. Brilliant day out with my brother. It was fantastic. But obviously they got tonked 4-1 on the day. I think Klinsmann scored. I think Daniel Levy scored a couple for Everton. I would probably change the result that day. That would have made just put a nice final note on what was just a good day out with my brother. What else have we got? SK8 DRIES. I don't know what that would say if you said it out loud. Hopefully nothing dodgy. What is your favourite football movie or top 1 to 3? Ooh. I used to love Escape to Victory. Obviously, as a kid, had Ozzy in there. And obviously the Pele moment with the strapped up arm. Ooh. The first goal wasn't too bad. I don't even know if I've seen the second and third ones. I must have at some point. When Saturday Comes, was that the Sean Bean one? That was quite good. There aren't probably too many great football movies. I feel like I'm missing a really obvious one. So apologies. And again, you'll no doubt put those in the comments. In terms of TV, Ted Lasso. I love Ted Lasso. It is superb. When I had COVID in October, I actually binge watched the first two, well, the only two currently. I think they're filming the third seasons of it, and it's just brilliant. It's just quite funny seeing the way it's done. It's funny seeing the way that they do football, as it were, because that's the difficult thing, isn't it? We know what football's like. It's so difficult to represent it properly on screen if you're trying to fake it. I just love the heart in it. It's a brilliant TV show. It really, really is. What other questions we got? Another kind of Conte in the summer one. We know that one. Stuart Morgan asks, any news on Paratici reshaping the scouting department? Well, that was something he and Steve Hitchin were doing. I know certainly because I like to look at. It sounds like I've got this really boring hobby on the side. I like to keep an eye on. There's various job websites you can see about clubs, and I know with Spurs there's been a lot of scouting stuff going on there. A lot of scouting jobs and analyst jobs, video analysis jobs going. So that looks like that transformation is kind of taking place. I think Paratici has come from Juventus that has such a high level of scouting department. And I think with Spurs, from what I understood, certainly the budget being put into it wasn't as high as other elite clubs. And that's now been brought up to a comparable level, or at least a workable level. And yeah, I think that is taking place. And whether you see that in this immediate transfer window, it might be something you see as time goes on. I think there's been a change in the head of the youth recruitment as well. I know that was it Chris Perkins also came in from Everton, or he certainly was meant to be. I think there's another chap who's also just come in as well, had a bit of a promotion as well. His name's gone out of my head, but yeah, I think it's all taking place because don't forget there's two levels to scouting department. There's scouting for the first team, and there's scouting for the academy as well, trying to get them in there a bit earlier, which are two very different kinds of scouting. You know, it's very different skill sets, I guess, you've got to have for those. Because I suppose when you're looking at scouting for the first team, you know, a lot of these players everyone knows about by the time that they're ready for a first team level. Then it's about deciding whether they're the right player, the right fit, and that they can adapt to the Premier League, which is a very different thing. Whereas maybe scouting a young player for your academy, it is pretty much about talent. Obviously, there's temperament there as well. Maybe the physical side of things and how you think they're going to develop in that sense, or how you can help them develop. So yeah, sorry, I went a bit tangent there, but I think it's being reshaped is the answer to that one. Andy Dibbs asks, in your time following Spurs, who is the best signing and the worst? Wow, that is a tough question. Best signing? I suppose any of the ones that have gone on to be stars, really. You know, you could look at like a Gareth Bale, you could look at a Luka Modric. You could go further back and look at the likes of Teddy, obviously Jimmy Greaves back in the day. Obviously not in my time following Spurs, Jimmy Greaves, because he was pre my time, but like Gaza as well, you could chuck in there. That is a really good and difficult question, because you could also look at someone like Dele Alli, which at that time was a brilliant signing. You know, he was famously 5 mil, but then within a couple of seasons was worth 150 million. Obviously now it hasn't worked out that way, but at the time was probably one of the best signings out there. Moussa Dembele, you know, picked up from Fulham and became a proper heartbeat of that Tottenham team. You could maybe look at someone like Hugo Lloris if you're looking for longevity. You know, he's been there, will be a decade soon in the goal, and signed for about 11, 12 million. I don't think it was a lot. So, yeah, there's a few. Again, so many players out there. I'm sure I'll get lots of suggestions in the comments, which I welcome, because I'm sure there'll be many, many that I haven't even thought about. Hopefully, we'll look back and we'll say, you know, Kulusevski or Bentancur will be. Definitely bargain buyers at the moment, in a good way. He also... worse as well. Do you know what? As much as I love him, because he was one of my favourite players, I think it's probably got to be Tongi because of the amount of money spent. Your club record signing doesn't produce what you need them to produce. I think that automatically has to be the worst signing, unfortunately. I think just financially, I think it has to. What else we got? Trevor Van Weichen, Wiechchen, asks, what or who do you think is the ideal Conte wing-back? I think, and he's licking his... he's got a little sore nail on his foot, on the side of his foot, and he's non-stop licking it, which makes probably not the best sound in the background of a video, to have someone making what sounds like licking noises just to the side of you. He's now looking at me going, let me get back to it. Sorry, this is really weird because, like I say, there could be no dog there. I could just be a nutter playing out this weird scenario. If he does... are you going to get up? No, you're not. I'll leave you to that. Otherwise, I would have got his face on camera for a moment. He's just staring at me. I kind of get the feeling that Conte sees Ryan Sessegnon as his ideal wing-back. I do. Because, you know, you look at it and he is 21 years old. He is good defensively. He's very good going forward. He's got the pace. He's got the energy to put the huge workload, to take the huge workload that Conte gives them of getting up and down that pitch. I think what Sessegnon can become in Conte's eyes is probably the ideal wing-back, if you see what I mean. So, yeah, I could say probably many of the players he used to have, I think Hakimi, when he was at Inter, he really kind of used him brilliantly. But I think if you're looking at someone who could become the perfect Conte wing-back, then it could be him. Which is why I didn't really like the Adama Traore talk in the summer. It didn't make any sense to me because it's like crowbarring someone into a position that isn't really their position. Oh, man. Josh Rosen asks, if you could have dinner with 3 Spurs players, past or present, who would it be and why? You got to say Gaza straight away for the entertainment value. My wife and the girls have been watching Dancing on Ice. Seeing his son win was quite nice. It was a shame he wasn't there for the final. But yeah, it was quite nice. Quite nice to see him pop up from time to time across the weeks, at least while they were watching that. I don't know. Everyone's going to say, "Well, they were watching it." Oh, yeah, like you weren't watching it. I don't mind it. But it's not saying it would be my go-to television. Gaza. Who else would I have? There's got to be players, isn't it? I'd say I'd invite Martin Jol around because I really like Martin Jol. Been very fortunate enough to work with him on some stuff in the past, and he is great company. I guess if you're able, are we bringing back people from who are now not with us? Because obviously someone like Bill Nick would be fascinating to kind of sit down and kind of hear their thoughts on how things should be. Who else? I mean, someone probably quite honest, like a Danny Rose or a Christian Eriksen, if I was going to go for someone from the modern era, because while every time you spoke to them, Christian Eriksen didn't like doing interviews. He would clearly pretend to be on his phone going through the mix zone, so he didn't have to stop and do interviews. But whenever you got him, a bit like Danny Rose, they were always really honest and really forthright. And I think at a dinner table, that would be really interesting. So yeah, probably from among those I'd go from. Ian Loudon asks, would you consider doing a live Q&A with the fans? Yeah, I probably will at some point. I mean, this is essentially it, because I don't cut these, I don't edit them, I just do it. It kind of comes out my mouth and I upload it straight away, so it's kind of live Q&A. But I know what you mean. You mean kind of asking the questions as we go. I did Q&A on Reddit a couple of weeks ago, which was really enjoyable. It was really good. It was one of those where obviously you always go into it a bit like, oh my goodness, what am I going to be asked? It was really good fun. I was only supposed to do it for about an hour. I think I ended up doing it for about 2 hours, maybe more. Yeah, it was really good. I really enjoyed myself. People were really good to me on there as well during it, which was nice, because you never know. In this line of work, you know that you're going to get some people that like what you do, some people that tolerate what you do, and you've got some people that just decide they despise you. I don't know why. Probably because my views do not match their own, I guess. So you do always wonder. Always remember, because it makes me laugh, because people are, on the whole, pretty much always very nice to me when I see them out and about, or they might recognise me from these or know my stuff. And I get some stick sometimes in the press box from when people come up and want to talk, or maybe not, I don't know, take a selfie, which I know sounds bizarre, and it's still, I find it weird that someone like me, just a bloke that sits on their sofa, would ever have anyone want them to be in a photo with you, kind of thing, especially with this incredibly photogenic face. Not, but yeah, no. There was one time that made me quite laugh. Was we used to have. It's not quite in front of us anymore. We used to have the section, the disabled section. It was just in front of us, but now they've kind of crowbarred in an extra row of like tight seats for just general. I presume they're general sale because it's different people in it every week. I'm sure the cynical among you would say yes, they're just trying to crowbar some extra thousands in. But yeah, so we used to have we were right behind the disabled section, and there were loads of lovely people there I used to talk to quite a lot because they were right in front of us. And I just remember someone came over being very nice, like, "Oh, I really like Alistair Gold." And there's this one chap in the section just bellowed. He just turned around and went, "Yeah, when he gets stuff right." And it just made me crack up. It wasn't a nasty thing, and it's absolutely right to be opinion, but it just made me laugh, and it made all of the guys around me laugh, and the guys and girls in the press box, because yeah, it was just really funny. And we can't get everything right. We can't. And the nature of our job means that things can be right, but then be wrong 24 hours later. I mean, take the Spurs managerial search, for instance. Loads of stuff was right on that, and it absolutely fell apart. As I'd always say with stuff I do, I try and I always look to double source stuff. Sometimes try and triple source stuff so that I can make sure that it is right. But that just made me laugh. It did make me laugh. He was and he meant it. He was proper grumpy. He was not a fan of Alistair Gold. Probably not a fan of the fact that I just referred to myself in the third person either. But yeah, just made me laugh. Sorry, I don't know why that popped back into my head. Talking about doing a live kit. Oh, it was because of the Reddit, wasn't it? I was obviously you sometimes worry that someone was just going to deliver a load of abuse at you. Yeah. It was good though. It was really good. Honestly, hopefully it's still up there on Reddit. I don't imagine they go anywhere or get deleted. Those sort of things. But the interaction was incredible. I looked at the stats on it, and I think the stats it had something like 500,000 views. It was superb, and people interacted really well. It was really good questions, a lot like these. I'm very fortunate when I do these Q&As. They're really good, and I think Guesty and I are going to do another one tomorrow for the podcast. So I'll be keep an eye on Twitter because I'll be asking for your questions, and you can chuck us your questions, and we'll be answering those tomorrow as well. Flanny says, "Hello from the US. Just want to ask if you would ever take an interest to any MLS teams, and if so, what would cause it? City player, etc." I was very fortunate when I went out for the pre-season tour. I went to see the LA Derby, El Trafico, as they call it, which was good fun. And it's just weird watching the game because you could see like Will Ferrell and stuff among he's one of the owners of I think it's LA City, isn't it? So it was City against Galaxy, and that was when Ibrahimovic and Ashley Cole were there, and Giovanni Dos Santos as well, all playing for Galaxy. In terms of who I'd cover, who I'd follow, I don't really know. Another big sigh from Indy. It's like, you couldn't cover anyone else apart from Spurs, don't be a muppet. I don't know. Like I've said, I love New York. New York is one of the cities that was always my favourite city before I'd even been there. And when I went there, it absolutely even surpassed my expectations. And I was fortunate enough to then go there again the next year with Spurs on a pre-season tour. So, I don't know, maybe New York City. There's New York Red Bulls, isn't there? There's a couple of New York teams, isn't there? Yeah, maybe. It's quite interesting you say that. It's something that, funnily enough, that kind of almost jokingly, my wife and I thought at one point when David Beckham was coming up with the idea for doing Inter Miami. We wondered about what would it be like to kind of stop everything I'm doing here and go over there and cover up this new team starting up, this brand new team in a very different league kind of thing, and coming at it with the British idea of journalism. And obviously MLS is very different. It's not like in terms of the structure of the leagues, in terms of the franchise element to it, and the way there's also obviously there's a draft element to it as well. So it would have been very different. It would be very interesting, and not ruling that out for the long-term future, but I do enjoy what I do, so it would be very weird to cover a club that's not Tottenham anymore. I think that's probably covered most of the questions. No, that's not a question. Oh, all right. Tell you what, I'll finish with this one. Oh, actually, no, there's a couple more. Sorry to prolong this if you wanted me to get off of your screen. Sven524 asks, if you got to interview Daniel Levy but could only ask him 3 questions, what would they be? That is a cracking question. Like I say, I've said this before, Daniel Levy, we don't get a lot of interviews ever, pretty much. I think the Evening Standard got one once a couple of years back, but it was tied in with something else. I can't remember what it was. If I were to ask him right now, it would be, are you going to back Antonio Conte in the summer? Next one would probably be, do you have any intentions to sell the club? And maybe the third one, I'd like to know what he makes of the perception of him. We've always heard it maybe from third parties. I've always been told by other people. And I think there's one of the meetings maybe, the trust meetings, there were some notes suggesting that he'd said he didn't really care what people say. But then I also hear little things that he keeps quite a close eye. He's not on social media, but he's able to keep quite a close eye on it. So I don't know whether that means there's some kind of burner account or something. There's some grey egg somewhere that is actually Daniel Levy. I don't know. But I certainly... Yeah, I mean, certainly from a reporter point of view, I know that there's been stories in the past that I've done that he has not been delighted with. There's been a couple that has been kind of fed back to me. Not that it would change the way I write anything, but it's quite interesting that for someone that doesn't seem to be bothered by their image, that would be interested in stuff like that. I do think that he has people that also look out for his image, and that's probably sometimes where I'll get moaned at as well. But yeah, we'll go for those 3. Will you back Conte? Are you looking to sell the club at any point? And are you bothered about the perception of you from certain fans, I guess? Although there is also a part of me. Can I add a 4th one in? I'd like to know whether he regrets sacking Mauricio Pochettino. I would love to know that now. Because if you look back on hindsight, it hasn't worked. So I'd be intrigued. And I know he was close to Poch. He was the closest relationship I think he's had with any manager. So I would like to know now whether he regrets that. So yeah, sorry, made it 4 questions. Blazej Gruchala asks, who's your favourite director that's not Tarantino? I do like Tarantino. My favourite director growing up, as you might have imagined, because of some of my film choices, is Steven Spielberg. I really was a big Steven Spielberg fan. I haven't actually, some of his more recent films I haven't seen, like Bridge of Spies, I haven't seen that. I haven't seen West Side Story, although my wife and daughters went to the cinema to see that a couple of months back. And yeah, something about Spielberg, just magic, some of his movies. But I think I'd have to go for Spielberg. I think I would. Richard Donner, when I was young, did a couple of movies that really kind of were big for me back then. Superman, Lethal Weapon films when I was young as well. There's a lot of terrific directors out there nowadays, all over the shop. Christopher Nolan, of course, I like pretty much most of what he does as well. I think there's anyone else. The Russo brothers, of course, have done. If we're talking blockbusters, have done good stuff as well. Of course, they have. Literally every kind of... The ridiculous thing is I've watched so many movies and literally loads of modern directors' names have gone out of my head. Sorry about that. I will remember them. It's really going to annoy me. It was really going to annoy me that I've forgotten lots of that kind of the modern bunch. I did watch Power of the Dog before the Oscars, a Jane Campion one, which beautifully shot. Just there wasn't much to it. I liked the performances. I liked Jesse Plemons because I used to really like Friday Night Lights, so liked him from that. And obviously Kirsten Dunst is very good as well, and of course Benedict Cumberbatch was superb. But it was just one of those movies where you do get drawn into it, but it is, it is ice, but it is glacier slow. It is very slow moving, beautifully shot, and forgotten who the boy who played the son, who was Oscar nominated, he was excellent as well. But yeah, Jane Campion's style is very much is the visual side of things. Ridley Scott as well. Not a modern young director at all, but I used to really like his stuff. And strange side note, my mum used to work for Ridley Scott way back. She used to kind of work behind the scenes in doing TV commercials back when he used to do that. So strange little bit of trivia there that's of no use to anyone whatsoever. I think that's probably it. I think we're starting to. Okay, last one. I'll make these the last one because they're there. Stuart Griffiths asks, if in the summer you could only buy one player, which position do you see as essential must fill and the style of player to fill it? It's a tough one because it's got to be a starting 11 player, hasn't it? I'm a big Ben Davies fan, but I think they need to bring in another central defender on the left-hand side to battle with him. And I'm not saying to replace him. If he's better than Ben Davies, then he will replace him. I'd like to see. Probably, I think that's quite a crucial part of the field. Otherwise, if one of the right wing backs goes, I think that's quite a key part as well to the team. That's what I'd go for. I think attacking wise, it's kind of there in terms of the starting 11, but of course, I want another striker, and I probably do want a playmaker. So I am being quite greedy. But I think probably in terms of a key position, probably either another centre-back or a right wing-back. He's also a sneaky one. Favourite Marvel movie? Thor Ragnarok. I love it. There you go. And that's helped me think of a modern director, Taika Waititi. Absolutely love his stuff. I don't think there's anything that I haven't loved that he's done. Jojo Rabbit, superb. Boy was fantastic as well, one of his slightly earlier ones. I love What We Do in the Shadows, both the movie and the TV show, which obviously doesn't direct, but has a major role in it. And Thor Ragnarok was brilliant. I love it. Absolutely love that film. I love the humour in it, and I'm looking forward to the new one as well. Is it God of Love and Thunder? Thor Love and God of Love and... I can't remember what the new one's called, but really looking forward to that as well. And that's him again. So here you go. Got to answer my earlier question. It came back to me. That was good. And there are loads of other directors, which I'll also remember. So there you go. I think that's part 2, pretty much done. Hopefully this will upload properly, and hopefully there won't be notification issues that have plagued a couple of the recent videos. I don't know what's happening. It's not my fault. I'm just I'm uploading them as you should, and then whatever happens YouTube end seems to happen. So so you got a bit of a double bubble, if that's your thing, in terms of 2 hits of this stupid face. So I do apologise for that. And like I say, if you've got to the end of this and haven't seen part 1, if you want to go back and watch it, it'll be a bit like watching, Temple of Doom rather than Raiders Lost Ark, watching it out of sequence. Weird thing is, obviously, Temple of Doom is actually set before Raiders Lost Ark. Then go to the video that wasn't working, part 1, which I will rename part 1 in a moment. Go to it, and I've changed the resolution from 720 to 360 pixels. That hopefully will do it, and if it doesn't, then try watching it through Safari or just on a general web browser, and I think that seems to be working for people. Because I think we covered a lot of different stuff, but I've tried to make part 2 as different to part 1 as possible, so that anyone who watched part 1 is getting a lot of different stuff in this one, and vice versa if you want to go back and watch part 1. Hopefully it worked. We'll see. But I'm back to work tomorrow. Press conference on Friday at Hotspur Way, and then Sunday's game. So let's see what it all brings and what more we've got to talk about next week. But I shall head off now. So as always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves, and I shall catch you later. Goodbye.